Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Constructing the Clubhouse, the world's #1 comedy podcast about starting a comedy club in Barcelona during a pandemic. I am your host, Dr. Matthew John Murtha. Joining me is my indomitable co-host, Johnny Boy Ellis.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello, John. And we have two very special guests today. Today's topic is going to be roast battles and how to write a roast joke. And so we've got two of the foremost experts in Barcelona to discuss the issue. Joining us today is James Regal.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello, James. Welcome. James, of course, is one of the producers of The Purge and now newly minted and newly franchised Roast Battle International Barcelona.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, super excited.
Fantastic. We'll hear more about that in just a moment. And then comedian, I don't know, powerhouse comedian, Mr. Tamer Kattan.
Thanks. What's up, Doc?
Yeah, and we'll get into your experiences with roasts and your expertise in just a moment. James, why don't you tell us about what's going on here in the Barcelona?
Yeah, gladly. So it's all been a bit of a blur this last 2 weeks, actually, just trying to throw it all together. But I don't know, maybe if I kind of start at the start and how we got here. So I've always been quite a big fan of roasts. I enjoy doing them, even though weirdly, I'm not confrontational at all. I hate confrontation. Never been in a fight in my life. But I love smart jokes. I love one-liners, and that's basically what a good roast is, right? It's a joke competition. So we definitely weren't the first to do roast battles in Barcelona. Our friend Chris Groves and was it Xavi? What's his name?
Yeah, Xavi Castells.
Xavi Castells. That's it. They did a couple of roast shows just before the pandemic. And I was part of that, and it was the first roast I'd ever done, and it was really fun. And I kind of almost afterwards, I was like, "Oh, this is great! I smelt blood. I wanted to do more." But unfortunately, those shows, they never did another one, and then we had the pandemic, right? So around about last year, I'd only recently got into running shows with these shows I do in Ibiza, and I was like, "I'd love to run one in Barcelona. It'd be really fun to revive roast battle." But with me, I've always had this thing with anything. When I was at uni, I used to run events and things there, and through work, I do PR and creative brand stuff. I always want to add a bit of theater, something a bit different to make it stand out. So I had this idea of what if we did a roast battle, but it felt like a sort of underground fight club.
Yeah.
Even to the point where we keep the location secret and all this. So I approached another comedian here, Phil Varney, who I know had some experience with roasting, and he's sort of, he's American, he kind of gets it. And I sold this idea to him, he was super excited. And we found this sort of converted warehouse out in the kind of suburb bit of Barcelona, which was just perfect. It was operating as a kind of an art gallery, but it had this big, wide open warehouse space. And this is amazing. So we got a bit of staging in. We made it in the round with fences. I think, John, you judged. Did you ever come to one of those, Matt?
No.
I can't remember.
I was judging. It was really great the way that you'd set it up.
So you start this show. I'm going to beat you to the punch here.
Yeah.
You call it The Purge.
Yeah.
It's a huge success. It's
Right.
got underground, like you said, underground fight club feel. The visuals online look amazing. The show's successful, and then what happens?
So after a couple of those shows at that place, we were like, the problem with it is the acoustics in there were terrible. People would complain they couldn't hear the jokes because everything echoed. And then another friend of ours, Belinda Filippelli, approached me and was like, "Oh, there's this venue, they're looking to do comedy, go and speak to them." And it's this beautiful venue in the basement of a place called La Textile, which is a brewery / restaurant. And they've got a fully equipped professional music venue that takes about 80 people seated, about 100, 150 standing. And it had everything I was dreaming of making the show with moving lights, and we could do all this cool stuff and a proper sound desk. Because, at the start of the show, it's called The Purge because it's this is the night you can say whatever you want to whoever you want just for this night. And we play this intro with purge sirens, and now we had the ability to make the lights go red and blue and move around. And so we moved it there, and it's gone from strength to strength there, selling out. Now, around about that time, we contacted Roast Battle, like the main brand in America, and just said like, hey, we're doing this just to let you know we're not calling it Roast Battle, we're doing it. And they said, well, actually, funnily enough, right now we've got this league of 7 cities, but we're looking to maybe expand in 2023. So send us your content, like show us you can edit it and clip it well and subtitle it, and just keep sending it, and we'll make a decision. And that happened in January, basically. They said, you guys are nailing it. We'd love you to be one of our new 3 cities. And now we are officially Roast Battle Barcelona. So that's the story.
Hey, applause.
Yeah.
Really good job. How does the international aspect of it come into play? I know there's the sort of levels and you can potentially be flown places, but I haven't quite...
Yeah, I don't want to like overpromise so much on the flying to places stuff yet.
When am I going to do the Tonight Show because of this?
Yeah, I mean it's something that has happened. They just had an international show at the Comedy Store in December where they flew Ken, the UK champ, out, and he had to battle the New York champ, which he won. Go London. Nice. So the international aspect is effectively. It's a few different things. First of all, they will now amplify the content we share on our socials. So we tag them as, like, for instance, on Instagram as a collaborator. Mm-hmm. We share like a 60-second clip of people roasting here, and then they reshare it. And so all the Roast Battle fans around the world will see it. We'll create it on TikTok as well. So that's just a really amazing platform for everyone here as a comedian to just be seen. Yeah. Like telling funny jokes, right?
Yeah.
It's an amazing opportunity for us because people go, oh, there's a roast battle in Barcelona. We just had a guy, Frank Castillo from LA, who Tamer knows well, reach out through Instagram, like, hey, I'm going to be in Barcelona on this date. You doing a show?
Shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that just happened the other day. So it's going to
happen.
It's
quickly.
happening.
Well, here's a great opportunity to bring Tamer into the conversation now. So Tamer, you're, I'm going to call you an old head. You're actually not at this game that long. 10 years or something, right?
To 11, yeah.
Yeah, the point, though, is that you made the Comedy Store a base of operations for some time, yeah?
Yeah, I started at the Comedy Store. I actually started when Roast Battle was stopping 2 comedians from getting into a fist fight.
Oh, wow.
And saying, this is the Comedy Store, have a battle of jokes. You guys keep telling each other you're not funny. Prove it with jokes. Don't swing hands. And then it was a mic that turned into a roast. And then it slowly got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then Jeffrey Ross heard about it. And then, of course, he's got, the heritage of Fryer roasts that have been going on for 100 years, And then and it slowly built and became this amazing thing and grew and grew and grew. It became one of the most popular shows, ironically, in one of the smallest rooms. It's the Belly Room, which is like 80.
Oh, that was done at the Belly Room.
It was always in the Belly Room before, Comedy Central ever came near it.
Oh, wow.
But I think there was a really good vibe around it. I think people focus on the battle part, but really, in its essence, Roast Battle was about not fighting. And it was every roast battle had to end. That was the main premise of the roast. It was like at the end of your fight, you have to hug.
Yeah.
And it's over. And it's done.
Well, in those Fryer Club roasts, the format, the way you say 7 bad things about the person, and then you go, but I fucking love this guy. He's fantastic.
Sure, yeah. It was celebrity roasting back then. Like it was a Borscht Belt thing that they brought in. And even Jeffrey Ross's book is called I Only Roast the Ones I Love. And there's a real truth to that. It's really funny when you roast someone that you actually know. Like at the Comedy Store, if you were going to roast someone, you had to go to lunch with them and have a conversation with them and get to know them. And you had to answer truthfully. And then, and people put a lot of work into it. And it was weird because a lot of people felt like they were abortions rather than kids because they were jokes that you could never use again, theoretically. But they were worth it because the energy you created in the room was so positive. Like there's a story I always tell about Danielle Martinez, who doesn't have feet through an accident, and she was in her wheelchair. And Moses goes to, I can't remember who's battling her, but he goes, how do you feel about battling Danielle? And he goes, well, why am I worried? She's already been defeated. And the whole room gasped. And then Danielle let out the biggest laugh. And then the whole room laughed. And I think that was the last time I heard a gasp. I think people started to learn that, there's an old saying that goes that I don't think the truth is ever told between the hours of 9 and 5. And comedy is after 5 language. Yeah. So when people get offended, it's because they're using 9 to 5 mentality. Like, oh, you can't say that. You can't say that. No, but this is different. This is a place where we can play. This is a friend calling another friend and going, hey, what's up, you big asshole? And we laugh. Like, we say the worst things to our friends because we know that the energy behind it, which is really what matters, the energy behind it is love.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's why roast battle is so much more than a show. It's a way of thinking, you know, and it comes back all the way back to Lenny Bruce, who said, if you take away our ability to say fuck, you take away our ability to say fuck the government. You know, so I think roast is the way comedians show love. And now we're sharing it with regular people.
This is a great topic because the execution of that is difficult. And I'm curious, I want to hear from both of you what your experiences watching roasts have been and what are the pitfalls you see people do a lot of times. Because this, you know, it's supposed to come from love, but out here in Spain and watching comedy and stuff, we're in the Wild West. We just try to recapitulate what we see online. And it's, people being mean. So I'm going to be mean.
Yeah, people, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then so it's like, John, nobody likes you. And that's meant to be the joke, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a proper joke. And so I think this is one of the common mistakes people make. What do you guys see?
I mean, yeah,
you've ran what, like 6 roast shows now?
Yeah, it's 6 or 7. And look, I'm not an expert on it, but I roast myself.
You are here in Barcelona. It's a very low bar here. It's Make-A-Wish for adults.
Yeah. The thing we always try and really impress on people that do the show is don't hold back. Like, nothing you say is too horrible. But obviously, you know, with the caveat that you've met up with your roast partner and maybe they've given you like a red line, like don't mention this or don't mention this person, don't bring them into it. That's totally fine. But if you want to say something racist, ableist, all the ists, like do it because, as Tamer said, like it's coming from the energy. Now, there may be people in the room who don't like people making jokes about those topics, but they are forewarned. When they come to our show, they're told, like, this is going to be brutal, and if you're easily offended, like, don't come. And I'm not one of these, like, comedians too woke people at all. I actually have some quite, like, woke sensibilities, but this is a safe space.
If you quote it, it's not woke.
That's true.
You use the quotation marks, James.
It's woke, the wokerati.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't hold back. But also, it's like Tamer kind of alluded to there, like, it's a joke writing competition. It should be a setup. And there should be a real punchline, and it should be quick. Because the energy in the room, but also just from a professional point of view, like it's much harder to edit clips of 60 seconds if someone has like a 50-second setup or 8 punchlines and tags.
One time, John walked down the street, and then I wasn't even feeling good that day.
Exactly. Like if you can't like take a whole story and make the setup like 1 or 2 lines, then I think the joke's probably too long. And you want to avoid getting into what I might call like, you don't want to sound like a best man speech where you're just like telling amusing stories about someone because, this thing they did, that's sad or funny, isn't it? And
then he punched the hooker.
Right? Like you can say that, but like have a joke, have a punchline at the end because that's what the show is about. Apart from that, it's just like go at it. Like
now, in just a moment, we're going to specifically talk about how to write some good roast jokes. But I for you, Tamer, what are some things that you have seen that don't work, and like where are the pitfalls that you?
I mean, I think
observed?
The mistakes I've seen people make is assuming that they can just write jokes on the fly, like, and the spoken word is much shorter than the written word. Like the way we speak is so much more fast and punchy than the way we write. And you can tell when people are too scripted, where they start using language that they're reading their jokes instead of being in the moment and being present. Or like, I don't know what I'm really going to say. Like it takes a lot of work to come up with a great joke. Like the process that we had like Frank Castillo, the guy that James mentioned, was the first roast battle champion in the United States. And I used to write with Frank. We'd go if I was battling someone or Frank was battling someone, we'd go to Frank's house, we'd smoke a shit ton of weed, and we'd play YouTube videos of that person's set. And we'd watch, and there'd be 3 of us or 4 of us to have friends.
Oh, God.
And we'd all sit there and we'd come up with ideas and we'd punch and punch and punch. It was a commitment. Like that week, the week that I was doing roast battle, I was only writing roast battle. I was almost not doing other shows. I was fully like committed.
Yeah.
And then you go to lunch with a person, and you have to be with a person who understands, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to come up with great material.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. It's about the love of jokes. It's not about the hate of a person. And so, you got to give feedback to people. You have to kind of also anticipate where someone might go and then have a good counterpunch. Counterpunch jokes are fucking huge because they feel fresh.
Yeah.
If you know someone's going to go after you if you're being bald or having tattoos because it's a big part of your body, be ready for that. And I think the biggest thing for me in Barcelona has never been lack of talent, or in Europe has never been lack of talent. It's been lack of work ethic. That's what happens at the Comedy Store. The Comedy Store, because all the comics know that a show is an arm length away and that producers and agents and everybody's in the room, people work their asses off.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And the more you write, the better you get. And then the other big thing is logic. Does it make sense? It's very rare for people to go, that's just not funny. A lot of times they go, what? I'm not calling out any comic, but this is for the sake of joke writing. I've seen a comic here do the same joke like 3 times. And the joke is, I participate in Dry January, and that's why I drink on Wednesdays. And I'm like, what? And every time I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. There are Wednesdays in January. And there are other jokes. If you just let it go, listen to the audience and go, okay, take the time to sit down and go, what are the other words? Oh, I'm going to try a Dry January. So for this whole month, I'm not going to use lotion or whatever. There's so many other ways to do it, or for this month, whatever. You could do it about girls that you turn off. And that's your Dry January. That's just riffing. But there's so many times where we write stuff and don't talk to other people and don't speak to other people. Use your comedy brethren to work stuff out and be like, if you write the premise, that's your joke. Punchlines are easy. So you shouldn't be afraid of asking a friend, hey, here's my premise. What's a great punchline? Like, I'll tell you, one of my favorite roast battle jokes was Jay Light, who's really good friends with Frank Castillo. So I didn't write with Frank. I wrote with a friend of mine who's a lesbian. And she gave me a punchline, not because she was funnier. She gave me a punchline because she knew something that I didn't know. I knew that when I went to lunch with Jay, that Jay and his girlfriend just broke up with each other and that they still lived in the same house. So when I told my lesbian friend that, my lesbian friend goes, oh, that's what lesbians do. And I'm like, boom. And then we wrote the joke. And Jay was kind of not the most alpha looking guy. So my opening joke was Jay broke up with his girlfriend, but they still live together. Not only do you look like a lesbian, you break up like one too. Yeah. And the room exploded and it hit Jay. But she gave me perspective. And that's the most important thing. It's not punchlines that are given. You have to talk to multiple people, talk to comedy friends, and you have to work.
Ugh. Work, Tamer.
Right, man.
Come on,
it's
man.
Fun. It's a great job.
It is actually. These are fun jokes to write too.
100%. Yeah.
I ended up I wrote stuff for everybody in the room, basically, just because you smoke and it's like, oh yeah.
How do you mean for everybody in the room? Like
I imagined what the room was going to be like, who was going to be there, and then
great.
I just went around, and was like,
that's great, man.
Who is it? Vem. There's a joke about her wearing a helmet now, so.
She wears a helmet?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
She wears a helmet.
She's doing videos and stuff, that's her shtick. Like how I wear my hat when I'm on stage.
Yeah. She's got this bike helmet because she's a skater. And then she just, one day, she put it on for a sketch. And then I look at her and I'm like, this seems right. You should leave that on all the time.
Actually, you bring up a great point. Here's another thing to consider. Because we have this opportunity that James created with the Comedy Store Network, this is something Ralphie May used to say. A lot of times when comics would go on the road and they were going to do radio in the morning, they're like, I don't want to give away my best jokes, right? And then they would not give away their best jokes. But on the radio, there's 10,000 people. And at the comedy club where you were saving your jokes, there was 100. Yeah. Same thing with this. If you do a joke about Vem wearing a helmet, probably people in Barcelona will get it, and people who know her will get it. But what about the potential of that you're killing that joke before it even has a chance to live on, the internet? Yeah. Because it might be... and Vem is not someone you're roasting. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the point was just that, like, I wrote these jokes almost out of habit or, just because they were fun. It's not... When it comes to the show itself, I'm going to be very specific, and I'm going to mostly keep everything trained on John If somebody pipes up, I've got, I have pre-written stuff, but generally, well, we'll see in the moment. Maybe there'll be like an opportunity.
Yeah.
But this, I think, is a good time to segue into a segment we like to call How to Write a Good Roast Joke. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Comedy Clubhouse Schoolhouse, and we're going to teach you today how to write a good roast joke. We have joining us James Regal, who's co-producer of the Roast Battle International Barcelona, Tamer Kattan, one of the foremost comedians in the entire fucking world. I said it.
Thank you. That's
and then
very sweet.
John Ellis, who's a piece of shit. So
I'm here to learn, guys. I want to listen.
John and I are roasting each other on Thursday, which is tomorrow night, and we can use each other as examples. Nothing that we write here will probably be good enough for tomorrow night anyway, but so let's go. So
what's like the first step is like research, right? So I kind of want to understand when I make it to the big leagues. So I've flown out to LA. What's my process with the other guy? You meet with them. What kinds of information do you want to extract from them?
Yeah, it's almost like a date. How are you? What's been good in your life? What's been bad in your life? Mm-hmm. What's been challenging? What scares you? There's 4 main emotions that you write through, which is what's hard about something, what's scary about something, what's weird about something, and what bugs me about something. And when I ask questions during a roast battle lunch, I ask through the lens of those 4 emotions, because those are the emotions that you write jokes through. You know what I mean? Like if someone's like, what makes me really happy? You never have a joke that goes, what makes me really happy? Because happiness doesn't work in comedy.
Unless it's kicking children. It has to, you have to turn it with
exactly.
really mean.
Yeah.
Exactly. But so that's usually how I start my research. And then I try to keep it casual too. My main thing is making the person forget that I'm trying to extract jokes so that they get really relaxed.
The people kind of clam up a lot. The people sort of...
No, it's cool because really we just go, let's just have a good time. It's not necessarily like I got my piece of paper in front of me and I'm asking... I did do that the first time, admittedly. I had a piece of paper and it went down and I noticed the person gave me very short answers. The next time I was just super casual about it.
Okay.
And we just had a date practically where we just sat and had a conversation and I asked them questions that I didn't know about them and I genuinely just got to know that person better.
Do you look for stuff that will hurt them?
No, because you never know. Sometimes they'll share that, you know what I mean? And that will come out, but I don't necessarily intrinsically look for that.
What do you think about that as a roast topic, though? Because I think people have made the mistake that, like, the point of a roast is to hurt the feelings of the other person. So you go after the thing that hurts them the most. In the case of Pete Davidson, you talk about his dad dying in 9/11, or
Yeah, I don't think that's what it's really about.
I don't think so either, but I think that's the common mistake.
But also, like Pete Davidson does material about his dad dying in 9/11, right? Yeah. So you're not necessarily saying anything that would surprise Pete Davidson, and you're not trying to hurt their feelings. But the people that take like battling and winning really seriously, I think they are trying to do is write something so brilliant and scathing that it shocks the other person into like they can't help but laugh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they're not upset, but they're like, oh my god, I never thought of myself like that, or oh my god, that's so brutal, it's hilarious, because you're trying to win, right? And you want the audience to follow you on that.
You know what's funny? I'll tell you, sometimes I'm not even trying to win. Like I think roast battle is a lot like MMA fights in Japan. The Japanese don't care about your record. They care about how you fight. And like for me, when I'm roast battling people, like my main thing is it funny? Like if I go, oh shit, is that too dark? I go, what is it funny?
No.
And then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I saw a roast on the internet that bombed super, super hard, but someone was roasting Steve-O on one of these celebrity roasts, and the joke was about how they wished that it had been Steve-O that died
Amy Schumer.
Instead of Ryan Dunn.
Oh god, yeah.
And it was just
That's
like
great.
dead silence, because the funniness didn't outweigh the level of meanness that was brought, and it was clearly a limit for him that was like way over the line, I guess.
Yeah.
Was
he laughing, or how did he react?
No, he didn't laugh.
He didn't laugh at all.
Oh,
he just shook his head.
He's just like,
yeah. Well, Steve-O's not really a stand-up. I'm sorry to say that. He's a clown, and he's extremely skilled as a clown, but he's not really a stand-up, and he doesn't come from stand-up culture. He became famous first, and then entered comedy. It's almost like moving to America after you were an immigrant in a different country. You don't really feel American, and that's why Steve-O to me doesn't feel like a stand-up, and why he doesn't get that. Like I think it's another part of our responsibility, especially in a city like Barcelona, where we're educating people to go, hey, this is a safe space to say horrible things. And at the end of it, we're all going to hug.
Yeah.
And I think it's important when people are roasting you that you show that you're enjoying it and you're having a good time, because it teaches the audience, not just for roast battle, but for all shows,
For
that
life.
jokes are just jokes.
How to
So do
take
you
a
think-
joke.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
think
that's so
basically,
important.
As a roaster, then, because we were talking before about how you warn the audience that you might be sexist or racist or whatever towards the other person. You try and prep the audience for it.
Yeah.
But the audience might just not be there. They might not
Yeah.
be ready for you to just go
Yeah.
on this tirade.
Well,
or
there's
whatever.
got to be a punchline.
Right.
You know, I think the only times I've seen even a great audience where roast battle didn't work or roast battle joke didn't work is when the punchline wasn't good. The joke wasn't good. So for me, the priority is it funny?
Okay.
It's
But
got to be funny.
the allegiance, because it can be funny to the other comedian, but not necessarily funny to everyone in the audience.
Well-
So your allegiance in this case should be to comedy
To
as
the
a
audience.
god
The
and
audience,
to
100%. It's
Absolutely.
got to be funny to the audience. That's a great point. Like you can't. It is a dangerous thing to make a too inside joke, because then the audience feels left out.
Especially in an
Yeah.
international
Even more
competition
so,
like
yeah,
this.
exactly.
Well,
Even
this
more
was-
so now
This
that
was
we have.
my mistake roasting Matt last time, because I felt like it was more interesting to do more sort of personal jokes.
Sure.
But I ended out having to explain them for a long time beforehand.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
lose a bit of the momentum. So that's
Yeah.
But
I
it's
mean,
like,
that's the other thing about roast jokes is they got to be short and tight. The first thing I do when I write roast jokes is I'm a big believer in write fat, edit skinny. So I'll write down the roast jokes on a sheet of paper and I'll make like a space in between each joke. And then the first thing I do after I write all the jokes is I eliminate words that are unnecessary. Like comedy's black and white. Anything that's gray, I eliminate. If like instead of sometimes, I go, he always does this. Instead of, oh, this could be, I go, this is. Like it's comedy's the black and white. If it's gray, they won't laugh. So the first thing I do is eliminate any unnecessary words. He doesn't sometimes get drunk. He gets drunk. He's not very loving. He's loving. You know what I mean?
You're also eliminating uncertainty with this.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's a great piece of advice, by the way.
I've seen just on the stuff about finding stuff about people. I've also seen great roasts where they've said stuff which is clearly untrue, but could be true by looking at them, right? So one of the roasts I saw in Edinburgh between Ken Grinnell and Alex Haddo. So Ken Grinnell is mixed race. I think his family is like Jamaican and Irish. Alex Haddo is blonde, white, from Manchester, British as it come. And he just kept saying she was a massive racist. And he had this joke, the one that it was his last joke, and the room just went absolutely wild. And he said something like, Alex is so racist, and everyone's like, how racist is she? He said,
Perfect.
she barebacks black guys just so she can terminate their babies, right? And the whole room exploded, and like people bent up. And that's like obviously like not in the slight, she's not a racist. She probably doesn't do that.
Doesn't
Nothing
abort
bad.
babies for fun, huh?
No, but he'd set up this whole like running joke of she's a racist, which knew like it's funny because it's not true, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's like almost like advanced roasting. I also find just the other thing, like finding stuff about people, but you always got to remember is this is a person stood in front of an audience that perhaps they're seeing for the first time. And there are things about their appearance that are just clearly obvious to anyone.
Yeah.
And like, so sometimes going for that is just the most simple and best thing to do, because it's like any joke where if you make an observation and everyone goes, oh yeah, that's, I was thinking
He does
that.
look like a lesbian.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't make all the jokes like that.
No, certainly
because
not.
I think just the
those are
first one.
Yeah, exactly. But that is also one of the pitfalls is people, like if someone is overweight, then all your jokes are about the person being fat. Or if someone's black, it's all about being black. Or if someone's white, it's all about being white. And I think that's where even the judges at like the Comedy Store, the judges to be like, hey, you just made a bunch of the same jokes.
Yeah.
And this is celebrating great like joke writing.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about getting the audience on your side that way. Hugely valuable. Like Frank Castillo did this great thing with Matt Broussard, similar situation where Matt it looks like a Ken doll, right? Like really good looking guy. And Frank goes, his opening joke was, Matt Broussard is, what did he write? He goes, Matt is a lot like the food at my work. He's about to get served by a Mexican. Is that right? About to get served by a Mexican. Yeah. And it's short, it's tight. It got the audience on his side immediately, and Matt was in trouble from that point forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of my questions, is how the first joke should differ from the last joke. So what the escalation of jokes should be.
That's a great question, because it's like a lot of people, I think it should build and build and build. Like if you've got a joke that's your, I think you close with your biggest joke, and I open with my second biggest.
Right.
People will flip-flop those sometimes.
Okay.
I think closing is how they're going to remember you most. That joke is going to be the last joke before the judges judge. The first joke is going to be your first impression. So I kind of flip back and forth between my biggest joke either being my opener or my closer.
But presumably the first joke, it's kind of like the wrestling thing we were talking about the other day, how to roast in wrestling. But the first joke probably is something that should be obvious to everybody, right? Should be kind of a bit more like, this guy looks like this.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it could be. It's hard to tell unless I'm looking at the jokes, because sometimes there's jokes that are really personal, like that joke I did about Jay breaking up with his girlfriend, but they still live together. That's much more personal, but it worked as an opener.
John, why don't you tell us what your first joke is?
I haven't written any jokes for sure yet. I wanted to check first if you have any limits, anything I shouldn't be getting into.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I've been mentally preparing myself, trying to think of like what tracks you're going to take on me and what I can withstand. I feel confident in being able. I'm able to take a lot of shit.
Can I talk about your divorce?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you send me the poem that she wrote?
Oh my God. Yeah. Jesus. Tamer, do you know about this?
I don't.
My ex-wife sent me a video last year. She was like, "Hey, I made this dance. I'm a choreographer. I made this dance about a relationship. Can I share it with you?"
No way.
And I said, "Oh, babe, absolutely. Oh my God, you're sharing your art. Of course I want to see it." And she sends me the video, and it opens up, and she's like alone in this field where I proposed, actually. And she starts moving her body. She goes, "You're the one who taught me that the person you love most in the world can lie to your face." And then it just fucking tears me apart from there on.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, somebody else is not over
But
this
while
yet.
doing an interpretive dance?
Yes, the entire
Amazing.
time.
It
And
wasn't very interpretive if she had to speak the words at the same time.
yeah,
as
that's
well, right?
that's probably true.
You were married to Lady Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh
That's
my
fucking
goodness.
Crazy.
And then she posted it online. I realized that she sent it to me not because she wanted to share. She wanted to warn me that she's going to post this. And her family's just like, way to turn grief into a gift. You go, girl. You're amazing. I'm like, half of that shit was not even true.
Wait, do I know this person?
No, you don't.
Okay. Fine.
No. Her name's Zoe. She's a beautiful woman. She lives in New York City.
Great dancer.
Great dance. Yeah, honest to God, she's incredibly talented. One of the smartest ladies I know.
Yeah.
Very lovely.
But that's
And a complete cunt.
But that's an interesting point, because that's like a whole yarn to. That's a really funny thing to maybe target them on, right? But like,
Sure.
It would be quite a long setup to explain, like, you
Yeah.
were married and she's a dancer, and so it's like, how do you?
Can you break that up over multiple jokes?
Yeah, how do you
Yeah,
condense
or
that?
or how do you condense the setup into like this? It's a rhythm of like, Matt was married and da. Stop, punchline. Like,
I think that's how I would do
a
it.
joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, John, let me help you win, fucker. But one joke, Matt was married for about 30 seconds in 2010. And then
Congratulations.
turns out, yeah, he was married longer than he lasts in bed, whatever the joke is. Then the next one is his wife sent him this dance video. And then you can, I don't know,
Yeah.
go from there. I might try to break that up.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like you do it quick, you do it confident. That's the other thing, is the less words you have, a lot of times it's the more confident the delivery is, because people can tell that you've taken the time to edit it, you know? And like, think about it like this: whenever there's turbulence on a flight, it's like turbulence in the room when you're doing comedy. And what's the first thing you do? If a pilot tells you, hey, there's going to be turbulence, and then you feel turbulence, you're not worried. But if nobody says anything and it's unexpected, the first thing you do is you look at the face of the airline attendants. And you go, if they look nervous, I get nervous.
If they're running for the fucking seatbelts.
Exactly. If they're running, if they look panicked, if they look calm, I'm cool. Bring me a cookie.
Yeah.
And I know this turbulence is not unexpected, is not a surprise. It's something they were expecting. And because at the end of the day, what you're doing from that stage is leading the audience emotionally. So if you're calm and cool, and if you're a good sport about the joke, there's no reason why
have
the
to
show
be.
wouldn't go great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I was maybe explain this to my therapist this morning. Like, the only way to win is to not be bothered by any of it.
Well,
Don't
listen,
let it hit home.
It's
Don't
not
let it.
sport. I mean, it's the one funny thing about roast that it's the one element that always hits me funny is comedy is art. It's not sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like in art, you're like, oh, it's my job to try to be the best. In sport, you're like, I want to be the best. But in art, it's I want to be the only. And that's a completely different energy. It's more internal. So really, roast battles, in my perspective, yeah, you want to win, and there's that competitive energy that you want in there for the energy of roast battle. But at the end of the day, from an artistic perspective, if you help him write a joke that roasts you, you're part of the artistic outcome. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You're welcome, John.
It's still a show, right? Like,
that's the thing that I think people forget here in Barcelona quite a bit. You're putting on a show. This is entertainment. You need to be big and like, I don't know, showman-ish.
Be confident in what you're saying. And show them that you thought about it so that you've earned their attention. People are paying money to come. The only time I get upset at comics is when they go on stage. I could tell they didn't write anything. They didn't write anything, and it's not. I get upset on behalf of the audience. Like they paid money, they're giving you their time, they're coming to watch you perform. The thing you owe them is for this gift that you get to have people applaud for you is to take some time to really be thoughtful. And one of my other things is like, because you mentioned this thing that was great, which is, he was married for 10 seconds, that's how long he lasts in bed. I always write down, that was my first, and then I go, that's the one to beat. The first idea you thought of is also the first idea the audience thought of. So they'll laugh. But if you want to get a big laugh, you got to keep digging and digging and digging and go.
And subvert that somehow.
And make it, the beginning of every joke is a distraction and the back of every joke is a surprise. The bigger the surprise, the bigger the laugh.
Yeah.
That made me think of, at Edinburgh Festival last year, I was lucky enough to do 2 roasts, and one was against Stuart Kennedy, who's a comedian from here. We know each other relatively well. We had time to talk about it, etc. But then they were like, oh, do you want to do another one? And I said, yeah. And then they just paired me with a random comedian, and I hadn't ever heard of this person. They were called Sam. They were this comedian from Liverpool, and the only way we had to exchange anything, there was no time to meet up, so it was like we just emailed each other 10 facts. Now, Sam sent me their 10 facts, and it was almost too much. It was like, I'm like bisexual, I'm not transgender, I can't remember the one where their pronouns are they, them.
They're queer.
Yeah, well, they're a queer comedian. Their father used to beat them. All this like really heavy stuff, and I'm like, I got divorced and I went to private school and I'm Jewish. Like I didn't have all of this additional. I felt bad, but we had to exchange these jokes. So I didn't know anything about the person. But what I tried to do was almost not go for the easy target, right? Because the climate, it would have been really easy to make a joke about transgender or the fact that I think they said they're autistic and all this. Mm-hmm. But they're also from Liverpool. In the UK, like a lot of people, that Liverpool has a reputation. So I can't remember how I worded exactly, but I said, this is Sam, and I listed all those things. They're transgender. This is Sam from Liverpool. They're transgender. They're autistic, and has learning difficulties. Like, how the hell do you get through the day knowing you're from Liverpool? So it's like, it's like they all expected me to make the obvious joke about that, but I was just like, no, I'm just take the piss about coming from Liverpool. Yeah. So like sometimes if you subvert their expectations, like you were saying, and it's a bigger surprise, and it's actually not as nasty as they thought it was going to be either. Yeah. Like, it gets a big laugh.
It's huge. That's how you get fans. A lot of the funny thing is people don't realize this. Like, a lot of comedians become famous from one joke. Mm-hmm. One. And then but it's a joke that isn't just a joke. It's a joke that's only you could do. You know, the way Louis talked about his kids, the way Angela Johnson talked about the fingernail salon.
Ali Wong
talking about her husband. You know what I mean? Or when she was pregnant, Cobra Mom. Like, there's always like, and the way to get to those jokes is to write and write and write. You know, even if you're doing it in your head, that's okay. That's still writing. But people can tell when you haven't spent time on thinking through a joke. And this idea that you're just going to go up and it's going to happen, those are rough. And you're throwing away an opportunity too. It's not just about the night. Yeah. You're throwing away the potential to be on this network. I mean, I had one video go viral, but I had a bunch of videos, and that one video going viral made people find my other videos, and it completely changed my business. Mm-hmm. Like, now I have a pretty good following on social media, and now when I gig all around Europe, I have people who come and pay money for tickets. So it's not just a show, it's a huge opportunity.
No pressure though.
No, it's not. But that's the beauty of it is you can't write with pressure. You gotta have fun, but just spend time.
I mean, that have fun it's got to be like the number one rule.
Yeah, I agree.
This place, man. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the difference between a bad first timer set and a good first timer set, is
100%.
whether or not the kid just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very easy to lose as well when
Yeah.
you get caught up in
Yeah.
trying to sell
Yeah.
tickets and trying to do this or whatever.
That's always we're quite prescriptive with the show. Those who have done it will know, like, we send a big long message to the group at the beginning, like, here's the rules, here's what we expect. We brief people for the Purge events. We take them in the green room. We do like a pre-show briefing, like very professional. But the absolute last thing we always say is, please just have as much fun as you can. Like
100%.
enjoy it. You're on stage. You're being mean to each other. The audience is like wants this. Just have fun. And what Tamer said, like the more they laugh at each other's jokes, like the more the energy in the room increases. The audience relaxes.
Yeah.
It's so important. Even if you're losing, even if they're battering you and your jokes aren't working, still enjoy the fact that they're making these brilliant jokes about you, which maybe you can take on and use in your own stuff. You know, when you come on stage, I know what you're thinking, guys.
Yeah.
I look like that. You know, you could take one of the if they don't mind you doing it.
Yeah.
That now you have all this material you can use, even if you've lost badly.
For
So
sure.
like, it's just a massive. It's really good fun.
It's a compliment as well if somebody's found out that they're up against you and they've said,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to spend the next 3 days sitting
Exactly,
down
yeah.
trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to take you apart. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think it's.
Wait, should I be offended then that John hasn't written anything about me yet?
Yeah.
I've written too much stuff. I've got too many things. I'm just
Yeah.
having to narrow it down as the tricky thing at the moment.
Dude, it's such a valuable skill set to gain, which is just like having stuff not bother you like that. And
That 100%.
it's great. It's a great thing for the comedy community to embrace, and it's a great thing for the comedy community to like kind of teach normal people about. Like,
Yeah.
Big deal.
I've been quite surprised. Sometimes it's been quite a struggle to get a lineup for these shows. And I don't know if it's because people are intimidated by, at least, I think hopefully by doing it at the Clubhouse where it's a bit more stripped back and raw, we want it to be more accessible. We want newer people just to come and try roasting for the first time as well. There's put as much effort and love into these shows as the others, and hopefully they'll be as good. But without that big stage and all the lights going off, sometimes, I feel like people, they might be intimidated by doing it because of that. And also, this idea of like going up there and being vulnerable and not necessarily knowing how to write it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid of being mean too. I know that's held me
hugely,
back. Like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't want to go up there and make fun of Mariah or whoever.
I think that's the misconception is that it's mean. Is it a stunt?
That's me.
Oh, okay.
I just unplugged something out with my
Oh,
foot.
okay.
Yeah.
But because it's not mean. It's like, when you see animals play fighting in the jungle, they're not being mean to each other. They're playing with each other. They're showing each other's bellies. And in a situation where if they showed their bellies with a predator, they'd be dead.
Yeah.
But with each other, they're like,
It tickles.
come at me. Teach me how to be durable. And say a terrible thing to me. And every time I've roast battled anyone, our relationship has gotten tighter. We've become better friends. Because that's what it means to be a human being, to have someone say, look at all these terrible things about you, and I still love you, and you're awesome. That is dude, I'll tell you, I'm married now, and I wasn't married for a long time. When I met someone who says, I know every shitty thing about you, and I still love you, that was the first time I felt loved in my whole life.
Well, I mean, that's like the definition, in my opinion, that's the definition of love.
Yeah.
That's unconditional love. I know your
100%.
flaws, and I love you anyway.
100%.
I like how deep this got. We were like, how to write jokes. Now it's like the definition
That's
of love.
Tamer.
We just figured it.
Tamer is a philosopher in a comedian's penis.
I've been
I don't
living
know.
with Tamer for like, a couple of months now.
Yeah.
And like this man's ability to find a perfect analogy for anything
Yeah.
is so
Thanks,
inspiring. I'm like, damn, I wish I was that smart.
Yeah.
Well, there's some of it that's not deep, like where there's some really playful side of it too. Like, you guys know Nick DiPaolo,
Yep.
who's known as being the meanest right-wing comic and all this stuff. But Nick DiPaolo is phenomenal at finding silly sounding words. And there's a lot to be said for that too. Like Nick DiPaolo said this joke about, I was walking the street in New York. I saw a homeless guy on the ground. It just made me feel bad. I'm at home sleeping on an $800 mattress, and this guy's sleeping on a Heineken. And the word Heineken was so fucking funny. Like, and there's certain words, and it could be that too. It doesn't have to be deep. It could be just silly and playful. And I think that's the word, ironically, Woody Allen That's the word he would say on his way to the stage. He'd say play.
Really?
Yeah, he would. That was his mantra on the way to the stage. He'd say play.
I heard the other day Lauren Michaels saying the most important thing is that whoever's watching your stuff go, gee, looks like they're having fun.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, I think that'll be my struggle for Thursday. But let's try to, because we're kind of wrapping up on time. Let's try to I don't know, what is it when you
Summarize?
Yeah.
Summarize the important-
Recap?
Yeah, kind of.
yeah.
So, I mean, like, basically, we didn't write too many jokes together, but the first one is to identify your premises, not necessarily with things that are going to hurt them, but things that are personal and that would make the joke unique and surprising, right? And then from there, you take your first thought and then you try to one-up that shit times 10.
Premise is so important. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make is I think premise gets their attention and then punchline is the funny. Like I have this great example of like a joke where I knew not everyone in the room knew what it was like to be an immigrant. And I was like, oh, I moved from Egypt to America. And I was explaining how moving from Egypt to America is not the same as moving from Illinois to California. So I came up with a metaphor to make the audience feel what I feel, even though there's no way they'd know it. And I said, moving from Egypt to America was like moving to the future. And as soon as I said that, the room went silent. And I could literally feel people leaning in, like they were intrigued. That's the job of a premise, is to make people go, ooh, and even have them come up with an expectation. And then you've got punchline, 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 tag, tag, tag.
Yeah.
You know?
With this, 2 questions real quick about the roast. Tags and notes. Are notes okay?
We don't say don't bring notes, and I think Tamer said it earlier. Like my fucking short-term memory at the moment is terrible, so I need prompts, but don't read it like a script.
It's just
It's there to be like, okay, that's my next joke. Like,
John
remind myself.
Alice is a big dummy head.
Yeah.
Big dummy head.
And then in terms of tags, I mean, yeah, do tags, but we've had some people on the roast where like they do a punchline and it's worked. And then they've done like 3 or 4 like additional tags that almost some of them even go into like being a whole new joke.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's stop there. Because then also, you know, we then have to kind of maybe edit those out for the clips. It's kind of annoying. But even for the audience, it's like, tell your joke, hear the crowd, and then next person. Just keep it going.
Yeah. I mean, that my fear was being too short. And just had, so here's an example that I saw on my phone. And the line, it's just, John thinks Me Too is an invitation. That's the whole thing.
Is a what?
Invitation.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think it needs more.
That needs a bit more.
Right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Because you need like that's almost like the punchline, but now you need the premise, and so you could save it because sometimes that happens. Sometimes you go, oh, that could be a great punchline, and you just put it to the side. But now you got to build from like I had this joke about I had a cousin who saw Elon Musk on TV, and he's like, fucking loser. And I'm like, you're unemployed and you literally have a salsa stand on your shirt.
Yeah.
Like, and then so I was like, oh, that's kind of funny that he has a and then I built on it and I'm like, oh, Elon Musk took a car to the moon on top of a spaceship, brought it back and drove it away. You couldn't get salsa from a bowl to your lips. And then that started working. And then I'm like, what's the premise? And then I came up with this premise. This is the golden age of stupid people. Isn't it amazing how confident stupid people are?
Yeah.
That was it.
There's no penalty for them right now.
And then as soon as I said stupid people are confident, then that set up the joke. That premise made the joke better.
Kids, if you're listening, rewind it right now and watch how Tamer writes this because he had a concept, then he found the punchline, and then he went back and rewrote the premise.
Yeah, that can happen.
And now it fucking kills. I think I'll tell you guys that personally, I can make a 1,000 punchlines, but what I'm real shit at, or I don't put a lot of effort in right now, is the rewriting and going back and just fucking grinding the joke into something better.
It's like panning for gold, right? It's just like sifting it all out.
Yeah, but then you have to melt it down and make a bigger gold nugget, and
it's easier to write when you're writing a premise because you don't have to be funny in a premise. You just have to be thoughtful. And that is what really turns comedians into writers. That's what made people like Robin Williams go from comedy to an amazing actor. There's so many comedians who are phenomenal actors because they've studied human beings, you know?
They're way sensitive. I think that sensitivity is...
Yeah.
Just to go, sorry, John, just to go back to your point about like, can it be too short? I think that specific example needed like maybe a few extra words. But I think with some comedians, they think like they forget that I'm on stage. I want my stage time. So I'm going to try and drag out the jokes so I'm on stage longer. I don't know if that's a conscious thing or a subconscious thing. Whereas if you can get up there and do like 5 like snappy jokes, otherwise and the roast is over within 3 minutes. That's how it was in Edinburgh. They were doing like 5 or 6 a night. There's no time to fuck around because there's a show before and after, and you were just on and off, and like that was it. You don't have to be like, I'm here, I have to do a whole 10-minute performance.
But like that joke requires, I think you could make lists, right? Like I would write a list for Me Too, and then I would write a list for things that John does, that you think John does, and then you could find matching things. Like Earl Sakel did this roast battle against Jamie Carr, who's a beast, but Earl Sakel was our LA beast. And he goes, Jamie Carr not only looks like he dresses for Hogwarts, it's what he gives women who sleeps with him. So he found, and it's like, there's Hogwarts, and then he has sex with women. Warts, and then warts translate. So I think with the Me Too movement, you could even be like autism. Autism is seeing things backwards. John has a weird form of autism where he sees everything backwards, and that's why he thinks Me Too is an invitation. You know what I mean? So you could do stuff like that where you just keep going,
write that one down real quick.
I mean that's just
that's
off the top
annoyingly
of my
similar
head.
to a joke I've written. For
that's
my
right.
references,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
I think I might go in a slightly different direction anyway.
Yeah.
So.
But you get it. As long as it connects, you can really surprise people. By lists are really fun.
Yeah.
You could make lists and then start seeing matching things. We're like, oh no way! Oh,
And it's the surprising things that are really
100%. Yeah, that's the toy in the Happy Meal box.
yeah.
I had a question about theme, because obviously sometimes it seems to pay off very well to have all 5 of your jokes kind of run along the same theme, like the example you gave before, James, about the girl being racist or whatever. I know Andy did a good roast at Almeria where everything was on the same theme. But then before this podcast, we were talking about jokes. They can't all be the same. They can't all be repetitive. So they have to kind of be different. So what's your feeling on, because I considered with Matt telling all my jokes about the same basic theme. Do you think that's just basic high risk, potentially high reward, or how do you feel about that?
That's an interesting question because the examples so like for instance, Andy as well, the last battle he did against Olga, he said that she looked like a camel, but she's also attractive and he'd like to have sex with her. And then he did like 2 or 3 other jokes afterwards. It was like, when Olga has camel toe, it's just because she's wearing sandals or something. And he kept bringing this camel theme, but at the same time, each joke on its own kind of felt fresh. Whereas my battle against Chris, which to be honest, I thought he might win because his jokes were amazing. But you guys were like, you were right. He did, nearly every single one was like, James's divorce, his wife left him.
Yeah.
Here's a joke directly about that.
Which was also the obvious thing, which we've discussed already. That was the first premise that he wrote, and then it ended up being all 5 of his premises, presumably, in this situation.
I don't know, Tamer, what do you think? Like,
yeah, no, I think you always have to think from the perspective of the audience. Like not necessarily what they're going to tell us is funny, but what they knowing the limited amount of knowledge. I think if you like, it depends on the room. There's going to be jokes that are like more safe to do, that they're going to hit the punchline every single time, and then there's going to be jokes where if Olga had better roast jokes, maybe the camel jokes would have stopped working.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, or if she'd done roast battle longer, she could be like, a comeback. The comebacks are really powerful. Where you could cut someone off of the knees. You could be like if I was Olga and he did that to me, I'd be like, okay, can't wait to hear the next 3 jokes you've written about camels. And he's like,
yeah, that would have fucked him.
Fucked him.
Completely puts a stop on it.
Completely fucked him. But also, I've had people I had someone who beat me in roast just because of one thing that he did. It wasn't the jokes that he wrote. He would have these little one-liners in between. Thank you, Persian Joe Rogan. And I'm like, oh, you fucker.
Nice.
And then the audience exploded because
Yeah.
I do look like a Persian Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So those observational one-liners, the camel things, if he made it as a thank you every time she ripped on him, if it was like, thank you, Joe Camel, things like that, then there's a way to do it.
A guy in London got me with something similar to what you just said. So I feel like my actual jokes were better. So he did two things. First of all, but his rebuttals were all like stupid, like your mum jokes, which are dumb, but the audience really liked it. But the other thing that he got me with, before every joke, he just went, the first one was quite normal. He's like, this is James Regal. But then each time he'd like, no, seriously, guys, this is James Regal. And then if it sounded disappointing, I'm like, I guess this is James Regal. Before every joke, and every time he did it, it got funnier and funnier. And it was just, I couldn't beat that because didn't matter how good it.
You could have beat it.
Well, yeah, okay. In hindsight,
if you were prepared, but now
I wasn't ready for that.
I bet you if it happened again, you'd destroy him.
Yeah.
Because it's the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's also a lot of power to being said in like people just having a good time, just having fun. I think the power of those jokes wasn't even him repeating James Regal, but it was how he delivered it, right? The energy behind it, how it impacted you, maybe like your reaction to it. You know, I think that's a huge part of it is just having fun.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Have some motherfucking fun.
Yeah, let's have fun, Matt. Let's do it.
I will try my very best. All right, guys. I wanna wrap this up. So, identify personal premises. Right.
And
Have fun.
edit, take out any unnecessary words. Make sure it's logical, that it makes sense. Run it by other comedians. Talk to comedians in the scene and be like, hey, here are my roast battle jokes. Does this make sense to you? Don't ask them if it's funny. Just go, does this make sense? And be open for the feedback. You know, don't just ask people in hopes that they're going to say, oh, everything's great. Like, just go, no, I want your feedback. I want to make sure these jokes are
I shouldn't have asked him anyway. What does he know?
Yeah.
Well, great. I want to. Anything else?
No, it's just great. I'm excited it's here. James, congratulations. That's a huge thing you're doing for the scene. And you guys too. You guys are doing a lot for the scene. I think that I think there's a huge opportunity in Barcelona now for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And this is I don't want to speak too soon, but there's another thing that might that's very similar to the roast battle thing that might come to Barcelona as well.
Let's open some doors.
Yeah. So I think
and then get these people out of here. I want to be back at the top of the pile. Let's send the talented people away.
Yeah, things have changed.
Thursday the 19th and the 26th of January at Roast Battle Barcelona on Instagram. Not Roast Battle BCN because that's the Spanish guys that don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
motherfuckers.
The whole layout of everything.
Yeah, but they're nothing to do with us. So yeah, Roast Battle Barcelona on Instagram and soon TikTok hopefully as well.
Yeah, 10 p.m. Thursday, January 19th and 26th.
Correct.
And follow Tamer on Instagram.
Yeah, at Tamer Kat, TamerKat.
Cool. And follow us. Come hang out.
I mean, at J Regal, JNR for Junior.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for listening to Constructing the Clubhouse. Big thanks once again to Tamer, to James.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, guys, that was really fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
And to our beautiful co-host, John Ellis. I've been Dr. Matt.
Beautiful, John.
Oh. Building up my self-esteem before it gets torn down.
Yeah, you'll be fine tomorrow, John. Don't worry.
Peace, everyone.